Thank you for being here. Without you guys, this is truly not possible. Now, I'm going to introduce Dr. Debbie Phillips. Dr. Debbie Phillips is a highly experienced real estate professional and entrepreneur. She is renowned for her leadership programs and talent management strategies. Recognized as a thought leader in the industry, she has received prestigious awards and found the Real Estate Career Academy to promote awareness and prepare talent for diverse opportunities. With a PhD from Georgia Tech and a strong belief in the power of people, Debbie's passion lies in developing top-tier talent to enhance organizational success through increased employee engagement. So everybody, please welcome Dr.
Let's do it! All right. It is a Ticket to the Top Tuesday, and I see Mary Gwen back there, so we can get the party started. I just want to say thank you to Resman for bringing such a meaningful conference together. So give everybody, Lindsay, everybody a round of applause for that. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I hope that you have met somebody new since you've been here. If you have not met somebody and brought them into your circle, you've missed an opportunity. Adam Kelly was somebody that I just met, and I put him with my sister, Sherry Freitas, right there. But it's in these casual conversations, right, that you get your bucket filled up, right? And I met Keith and Shannon with Roundtable. It's Roundtable, right? Right here in Dallas. I tell you, for those of you that are my dear friends, I love you, love you, love you, because you show up on the front row of my life. And that makes a huge difference. And I met Anita, Stephanie's mom, today, and I was talking about Stephanie, and I said, Anita, you raised just a rock star, right? But it's these gatherings, I feel like I'm at church, but it's at these gatherings that we get to know and expand our circles, right? And today we're talking about the business of business. And I heard a guy, he was an owner, and he was just giving that team a hard time one day about performance. And I told him, Sierra, I said, you know what? You don't have to be mean to mean business, right? And here we are today to talk about the critical areas of asset performance. And Sherry and I, we grew up with this guy named Bill Hamilton. And Sherry knows I always talk about Bill because I think fundamentally he shaped who we are as operators. And if you don't have a mentor in your life, and we were talking about that, Emily was talking about joining Stephanie, you got to have a mentor in your life that does what? That guides you, helps you make those good business decisions. Now, Sierra, you know I told you I was going to recognize you. This young lady's been in the business for 3 years, showed up with her notepad, ready and wired to win. Give her a hand. Front row. Come get this real quick. It's an Amazon gift card, right? Give it up for this girl. All right, so here's what we're going to talk about today. I love, 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 love. Sherry and Stephanie know I'm not who I am if I don't give you a book, right? And we have a lot of learning and development people in this room, but I want to call your attention today to the 5th discipline. And what I want to say here is it's not that we lack too little information or too much information. We have too many things that we're trying to what? Pay attention to. What I want us today to think about is we are fighting in an age of what? Distraction. If we can only get our what? Our property front line, and I'm a big frontline focused person. You know, Howard Schultz, the founder of Starbucks, he said, the person sweeping the floor needs to choose the broom. And Jennifer and I, we've talked about that all the time. If you don't have a frontline focus, you're missing the boat. So in this whole notion, Peter Senge says, what we need most or what to focus on, what variables to focus on, and what we don't have to focus on. Because all of our teams are what? We're drowning in information and starving for wisdom. We're drowning in information, but we're starving for wisdom. I like to think about how can we take a look at our people and our processes and our technology. I love this, you know, all of the talent gurus, they say hire people who can handle a bigger job than what is theirs so that they can grow into the what? The company. You want people to stay with you. We know right now, and I used this term the other day with an owner, and he goes, I was proud that you use retention rather than what? Turnover. Did y'all just hear that? I want you to be thinking about it, because in the boardrooms, we're talking about what? What's our turnover rate? And I'm like, what's our retention rate? We gotta do what? We gotta create fertile ground. Adam and I talked about it today. We gotta have a fertile ground for what? That people want to stay and grow with us, not leave. I think sometimes, and Jeremy and my brother's in the back, did we find Pete? Okay, we didn't find Pete. Okay, text him and tell him I'm calling him out. But we got to create a deep bench of talent. I talk about it. Stephanie's heard me talk about it. Not a ladder, but a lattice. Did y'all just hear that? Because on some of our properties, we have small properties. And there's not a lot of what? Upward mobility. But that's not to say that we can't what? Create a lattice for people to what? Use their gifts. So if you're taking notes in my session, I want you to think about not a ladder, but a lattice. It's not an either or, but it could be a what? It could be a both. Failure to hit the bullseye is never the fault of the target. We've got proformas that we performed back what? Last year, and we've got to do what? We've got to execute and meet what? Today. And back then, the market was what? It was still a little different. So I wanted to think about, and I always teach this in IRM or any other real estate class, fundamentally, we've got to know our goals and objectives of the owner. At the end of the day, we can have all kinds of marketing plans. We can have all kinds of, you know, rah-rah campaigns. But at the end of the day, we are doing 4 critical things. And I want you to know this. Number 1 is we are performing as a fiduciary. Let me go back for just a second. Performing as a fiduciary. We are the owner's agent. Number 2, I love. They hear me talk about it all the time. How do you increase the value of the what? The property. At the end of the day, we're all value creators. I don't know about you, but there are people that come to the company and they're more of a what? A liability than they are what? An asset. I'm like, day one, you gotta what? You gotta help put points on the board. And then number 3 is to produce a profit. We don't go into business saying, oh, let's just see how much money we're gonna lose. We don't. We gotta be a what? An entrepreneur. I love it. And then number 4 is to provide the highest quality of living environment to our residents. When I teach this in commercial properties, I say tenants. We don't call them tenants unless they what? Don't pay us. Then they are what? A resident or tenant. But we want to do what? We want to make sure that we are sharing this, and Adam talked about it, from the porter all the way up to the president. We have to teach this. This is fundamental. And the reason I say this, and they hear it all the time, when we walk out on a property and a groundskeeper doesn't understand how they are contributing to NOI, we're leaving a very vital person out of the what? Conversation. It drives me crazy. They hear me talk about it all the time. I'm like, our porter, our groundskeeper doesn't even know about Uncle Irv. Now, do you know about Uncle Irv, Tara? No, I'm going to tell you. Hang on. All right, Sarah, you're going to have a lot of notes by the time you leave here. All right. When I was teaching at Georgia Tech, my major professor, I didn't always get along with him. But he said to me one time, he goes, you've got to put property management on 1 page. I'm like, I can't even say good morning in an hour. How am I going to do that? But I want you to really look at this because up at the top, I think this is a pointer maybe. Oh, no, it's not. Let me go back. Owners, goals, and objectives. There's a lot of things that are going on this framework. But I didn't get out of Georgia Tech until I got this done. This took 5 years, and I want to tell you why it's important to me. If you can't explain how you do something, you don't understand it yourself. Now, I want you to really let that bake in. And the reason this means a lot to me is because I had to show how we go from an owner's goals and objectives all the way down to profit and loss. I teach this in every class that I teach now. Because here's what I want you to understand. Management procedures fall into 3 buckets: HR, financial procedures, and operations and maintenance. I could spend a whole hour on this alone. But the one thing that I want you to understand is revenue. Revenue, revenue, revenue. You can only do what? Trim your expenses just a little bit. We can't control property taxes and other things like that. But you can never make more than your what? Your income. Be income driven. That's the first conversation I'm going to talk about. Is how do we what? Maximize our income. And so, Tara, I'm going to share with you, this is big, big, big. My students say, you talk all the time, I never know what's going to be on the test. So when I say it's big, 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 that means you need to write it down, Sarah. Okay, remember this, NOI. That's the heartbeat of the property, right? A lot of companies today don't teach that, what, on the front line. They say, just go rent an apartment. But if you don't, like Simon Sinek says, if you don't know your why, what the heck are you doing? You got to know your why. And so I teach this because I think it's important that when we have income minus expenses, we have NOI. And what I want to do today is I want to share with you how we can do what? Not trim our expenses, but what? We can focus on the income. Now, Tara, this is it. Uncle Irv. It's your favorite uncle. It's your richest uncle. It can be. Okay? Remember this. The lower the cap, the higher the value. Now think about that. The lower the cap, the higher the value. This is what I want you to take so you can teach your front line. Because if you leave them out of the conversation, you don't care. Yes? Oh, absolutely. Honey, I got the whole deck for you. Just meet me at the end. I'll give you the whole deck.
Yes, I think that, but I like
yeah, there you go. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, but you can have the whole deck. And my book list, which is wonderful. Okay. All right. Uncle Irv, here's what I want to say to you. The lower the cap and the higher the value. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because we have limited time in this session, but I do want to show you this. When you have income divided by the rate, that gives you the value. You look at 360,000 NOI and you divide by a 5 cap rate and the value is only 7.2. If we had time and I was teaching a longer class, we'd go around the room saying, here's where I add value. You know where I add value? I sell like, You know what I'm talking about? I love to sell, right? And when somebody tells me no, I just say, okay, you're not my people. Let's go. Let's keep moving, right? Because obstacles are what you see when you take your eyes off your goals. And if we all went around the room, Sherry, and say, well, you know what? I focus on centralized services. And Stephanie says, I focus on leadership. Stephanie says, I focus on leadership. Every one of you has a genius zone, and you contribute to that NOI. But look what happens. When we grow it just by $40,000, look what we do to the value. Look at that. That's what I get radically fired up about. And you know what? Everything I do, from helping people grow, picking the right people on the team. You know, there are a lot of people that are on the payroll and they don't work. Are y'all awake? You know, I say it's not the number of people on the payroll, it's the number of people working. Right? You got to have motivated talent. You got to have people that what? Are really, I always say, establish a competitive floor. right? Because if you don't have competition, you just say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll follow up tomorrow. But when you have competition and you're leasing against somebody, honey, I'm going to put the points on the board. I'm going to go with that trophy. I want everybody to win, but you know what? I'm going to put the points on the board. You got to be wired to win. And so this is what I get excited about. But it's all about what? Cash flow. We've heard it. Now, you'd have to be living under a rock not to know what? These 5 Ps. Remember, Sherry, we grew up on these 5 Ps. Other companies call it the 4 Es or the whatever. I call it people, price, product, and promotion, and the very most important one of all is your passion. I see a lot of people walking around dead. They're not on fire. They look like they've been weaned off of a lemon. They are not on fire. They're not. You can tell it. I can tell when I go see a property. When it looks like a dumpster fire, and it ain't even in a dumpster. It's crazy. So I wanted us to think about this, and I love this quote by Michael Jordan. He said, the minute you get away from the fundamentals, the bottom can fall out. Friends, we have lease revenue management, but all these things. But at the end of the day, if we're not just what? Fundamentally doing what we're supposed to do, right? I see regionals that don't get out on the property, and I'm like, you're missing the fun. Because the fun is out there when you're having a meeting with your community director and you're out there walking and you're learning about him or her and you're having radical love, not literally, but you know what I mean. When you're really having fun, you're not going to miss it. You're going to care at a deeper level. You're not going to let the trash sit there. I don't know, how many of you go on vacation and you're looking for the trash? Right? We do it all the time. Because it's baked in our what? It's baked in our DNA. So I say, before you can win, you got to survive and you got to do the basics. And the basics, it's easier to find financial capital than it is to find human capital. Human capital is what we are in the business of doing right now. And I say this all the time, the most powerful and distinguishable asset of every institution is its people. You can't pay them enough to offset the absence of motivated people. I mean, from the day they come in wearing an interview mask. You know what I'm talking about? And then somewhere between the day they sign the paper and the day they come, they lose their mask. Y'all know what I'm talking about? So you got to do what? You got to do multiple interviews. You got to have group interviews. If you're doing one-to-one interviews on your first time, you're wasting your time. Everybody, I mean, Stephanie and Sherry and Adam would see things that I don't see. Does that make sense? So stop doing one-to-one interviews on your initial interview. Have open houses. Have people come in. Look at their behaviors. You know, the person that's at the food line that's stuffing their face the whole time, do you think they're going to be taking care of the customer? No, they're going to be eating. I look at behaviors, right? I mean, I talk all the time, but I observe a lot. Your head's got to be on a swivel in real estate. You got to look for behaviors that you want to say, that is indicative of the people that I want what? Taking care of my residents. When they say please and thank you and they hold the door and they have good manners and they write thank you notes and things like that, that's just because of who they are. Those are our people, right? Instead of answering some cockamamie interview question and they've already looked up the answer, right? You got to select people based on what? Behaviors, not the right what? Answers. I'm not saying that I don't want a smart person. I do. But I want what? A more emotionally intelligent person than I do a brainiac all day long. So how do we think about this? And I talk about this in a lot of programs. Look at that over there. And I want you to write this. This is a big takeaway. Hey, Elizabeth, we love you. Yeah, we love you. about job fit, and I want you to write this down. Job fit is one of the most significant predictors of success in a role. Job fit. And the reason I talk about that is because you see Wilt Chamberlain and horse jockey Willie Shoemaker. And the reason I talk about this a lot is because we have people that are failing in their roles because they weren't what? Naturally wired for that role. It doesn't make them bad people. Everybody's got value, right? Everybody's got value. Adam and I talked about that at length at lunch. But you got to look carefully at your people. And you got to say, are they in the what? Role that I'm asking them to what? Do. Commitment. I love this quote by Ogilvy and Mather. Look at it. It says, if each of us hires people who are smaller than we are, we will become a company of dwarfs. But if each of us hires people who are bigger than we are, and you can put your name, Round Table Multifamily, you can put, whatever, Ogilvy and Mather will become a company of giants. Bottom line, people hire 9s, 10s, and 11s. And don't scrimp on your what? On your talent. You can't. Because you can't do it all, and that's a whole other topic for another day. That's why people are burnt out, strung out, and they look like bad curb appeal. I told Lloyd he had great curb appeal. But you know what I'm talking about is that this is a byproduct of what? Poor selection. It is, and I hate to harp on it, but it's the truth. And how do we measure? This is something that I want us to think about. When recruiting, never look for the best people. Always look for the right people that what? Have processes. Spend more time looking for the people and less time trying to change them. A zebra never loses his stripes. You can't change people. I don't know how many times we wanted to stand on our head. If we could just get them to do this. I'm like, Sherry, they ain't doing it. They're not doing it. But I want you to look at this. This is real quick, and then we'll move on to another P. Is number one is our shopping report. I don't know about you, but I love it. People have a problem with it, but I'm like, you know what? That is just a litmus test of how the public gets treated. I was telling Adam, I teach at Portland State, and we're in week 8 of class right now, and they're doing their mystery shopping reports. And they're like, Dr. Debbie, I don't know why you're making us do that. And I said, because that's where the rubber meets the road. You got to do that. And then real quick, just financial statement and a professional development plan. If you're working for a company right now that's not growing you, we talked about that. If you're working for a company that's not growing you, you're not a tree. You can move. You got to go where you are what? In fertile ground. Somebody that cares enough to say, I want you to get your CAM. I want you to get your CAPS. I want you to get your CPM. Jeremy's one class away from getting his MBA. I am a big believer the people that have a growth mindset will outperform, and I proved it in my PhD dissertation. I make a lot of things up, but I did make that up. People that have a growth mindset, I guarantee you outperform the people that have a what? A fixed mindset. Because they want to what? They want to expand the pie. All right, let's move because we got to go. Okay, position your product. Know your niche, right? You don't have to serve everybody. Just serve the people that what? Can afford it. That can pay you. We know timing is critical, but I'll tell you this. Everybody, we need to check our community's image. We need to check our image. At the end of the day, we are visual buyers. When we drive by that property, we say, hey, we like that one better than that one. Why? Because it looks better. And then you go in and you want to have what? You want to have people that have that hospitality, that spirit of love. We could talk about that all day long. But I want you to think about this. What does your property evaluation reveal? Your product needs to be spick and span. You don't have to be brand new, but you got to be clean. And I know it. I used to do property inspection reports. It was called TLC. And our older properties sometimes outperformed our new construction, right? Because people what? They took better care of it. The other thing that I want to say to you today, and I know Lisa Trezine is talking about value, but I want you to think about this, write it in your notes. Number one is, I want you to compete on value, not on price. If you're in an argument with a resident or your owners or your clients or your front line and they're like, we just can't get that rate. I'm like, oh, serve some wine and cheese with that wine. Right? I mean, I want people to be able to what? Sell value every day. I mean, there's reasons first class seats cost more than an airplane, right? You got more room, you get more pretzels or whatever. She comes around twice, I don't know. But you understand, I want you to do what? To compete on value, not on price. Have you checked your front line to see how they're selling their product? Are they selling it to you? If they can't sell it to you, and they're like, oh, Dr. Debbie, you make me feel uncomfortable. I said, honey, if you can't sell it in front of me, you can't sell it in front of the what? Customer, right? Simulation is the best training. You got to do it. When you learn it and do it, you can go do what? Repeat it, right? And then I talk about responsive marketing. You've got to know, are you competitive in your marketplace? You know, one of the best things that I teach people in sales class is, what do you think about going ahead with this today? Because you know what? It'll draw out that objection so quick. If I show you something to lease, would you lease today? Oh, you know, I get mystery shops sometimes when I'm working out there and they're like, she's a barracuda. I'm like, bring it on. I'll be a barracuda any day, right? Because I want the money. Don't apologize for what? Doing your job. I get excited. And then I say, analyze your rent structure. You got to do what? You got to create demand for your product. You know, if your 3 bedrooms are selling, then you do what? You jack the 2s up and you push demand to the 3s. It's not rocket science. I get wound up about it. Because at the end of the day, I don't know about you, but it drives me crazy to go by an apartment community. We don't call it complex, Sierra. That's a mental disorder. Okay, so we create community, Sierra. You got it? So write that down in the notes. But do you ever go by a property and it says now leasing? I'm like, when the hell aren't you leasing? Now leasing. I'm like, does it ever stop? No, you want to know what? You want to be raising those rents, so what? You get a little pushback. If everybody's saying yes to you, your rents are too low. Get going, girl. I get fired up about it, right? People are like, oh, you're coming to raise our rents. I'm like, heck yeah. I'm coming, baby. Because you're doing such a doggone good job. Don't shy away from hard things, right? Jake talked about it. We can do hard things. We can do hard things. Let's look. Promote your product so as to create demand. I tell my teams all the time, get promoting. Get your message out there. And I want y'all to write this down. This is big, big, big. Before I get excited, I might forget. I want you to write down 3 independent variables that you must have to be able to have what? Maximum value in an asset. Number 1 is you got to have resident satisfaction. People have got to be what? Satisfied. Variable number 2 is you want what? You want renewals. Renewals. A resident does not become profitable until about 18 months. You got to keep their families in the seats. Or heads on the beds here. That's what we say. Right? So variable number 2 is renewals. And then even if they can't renew, then they do what? They refer somebody. So when you walk out this door and they say, what did that wild woman talk about today? And you say, number 3, you say 3 variables that drive value. Satisfaction, renewals, and referrals. You got it? Okay, real quick, you got to look at your macro market. Where do you fit in the housing continuum? My undergraduate was in housing. My mom always said, pick a career that doesn't have an expiration date. So I majored in housing. I got my master's in seniors housing. And I'm here to tell you that every one of our products fits into that housing continuum. We just have to understand what our niche is. And we have to perform big in that area. We talked about satisfaction, retention, renewals, but we've got to have a marketing focus. I don't have time today, but I want you to write this down, Sierra. This is a good note for you. There's 3 things that you got to remember in marketing. Number 1 is to choose your customer. Number 2 is narrow your focus. And number 3 is to dominate your market. You got to know who your customer is. You got to narrow your focus. You don't have to be everything to everybody. And you got to dominate your market. Now, if you're taking notes under dominate your market, I want you to write this. T-O-M-A, top of mind awareness. When I come into your submarket and I go to the Quick Trip, or I go to the nail salon, or I go to the oil clinic to get the car taken care of, and I say, where's the best place for me to live? And they don't mention your community, guess what? Boom, boom, we got room to grow. You got to create that top of mind awareness, because what? People are doing the same thing. You can have social media, that's McKenna's genius zone. You can have anything, but at the end of the day, if people aren't talking positively about you, you're missing what? Opportunity. So, Sierra, did you get it? Top of mind awareness, choose your customer, narrow your focus, dominate your market. You got it, baby girl? Okay, we got it. We're rocking. Fish for whales, not minnows. Okay? And as I end up, I just want to say this. When you talk about asset performance, I'm here to tell you this is the main ingredient. You can have all those other 4 things, people, price, product, and promotion, but at the end of the day, if you don't have passion, you got to check your belly. Right now, May is Mental Health Month. NAA and NMHC and NAMA and all of those groups are doing amazing work thinking about mental health. But I'm here to tell you, it is every one of our responsibility in this room to help people win. I get radically fired up. They know it. And I want to say this. I didn't put, Jody, come on in. You got WAK right here. Okay. I want y'all to write this down big, big, big before I let you go. I didn't put a slide in here, but it's the languages of appreciation. We talked about it, Stephanie and I, we talked about it when we were together. I want you to read, if you haven't already read the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace, this would, Stephanie, you're probably doing it at your company. I know you are. Here's the 5 languages of appreciation. Sierra, get ready. Words of affirmation. 67% of all employees, Mary Gwen knows it, that 67% of all employees say they just want to what? Be appreciated. And when you give words of affirmation, you have to do what? You have to say, Sierra, you did a great job on taking all those notes. See, I didn't say you just did a great job. You did a great job on what? Taking notes, right? Words of affirmation. The second love language or language of appreciation is called what? Quality time. How many times do I see regionals? They come to the property. Oh, I'm making a property inspection. I'm like, well, you didn't come out of your cave. You got to come out and love on those people. You can't bury your head in that computer. That's not visiting. That's doing some paperwork. People take precedence over paperwork. So words of affirmation, quality time. The third one is called acts of service. See, I saw Stephen Ray, and whenever I'm around him, he fixes every bit of my technology. Remember that day that the whole computer blew up, Stephen, and you fixed it? Magical. Acts of service. And when you offer to help, do it their way, for God's sake. Don't say, well, I'm here to help, and you screw it up. No. You do it because you say, what? I'm here to help. Show me how you want this done. You know, because people can get wired up tied in Dick's hat band if you don't do it their way. Right? So, acts of service. So, you got words of affirmation. You got quality time. Acts of service, tangible gifts is number 4. And you don't give what? You don't give candy to a diabetic. Right? You do something that's meaningful. Okay, a company gave me a ticket to the Houston Rodeo not too long ago, and I loved it because my dad's a cowboy, and I got to tell him all about it. That was a meaningful gift to me, right? Tangible gift. And then the number 5 is what? Physical touch. And I don't mean inappropriate touch. I don't want to get the HR people standing on their head. But physical touch, that's that high five, that's that pat on the back, that's that warm, friendly handshake, like, here we are, we're doing it, right? And then as we talk about this, would you do it for free? I say this all the time, your purpose has to be greater than your what? Your paycheck. Our paycheck will run out, but our purpose shouldn't. Are you on purpose? Do you do things with intention? We're fighting that battle of distraction, but you know what? The things that have to get done will get done. People say it all the time, I've got so much to do. And I hate the word busy. That just gets me going. Somebody says, oh, I hate to ask you something, you're so busy. I'm like, I'm not busy, I'm intentional. You have to be where your feet are. You have to make these relationships. We're never going to get this moment back. We're never going to forget that we were in this room together. I hope you don't forget. But you understand, what you do today is important because you're exchanging a day of your life for it. We're not going to get this interaction back. So let's enjoy it. Let's learn from it. And number 3, are you willing to share? There's somebody at your property that didn't get to come today, and I want you to go teach this material to them. I give all my notes. I think Elizabeth and the team, they make all these slides available. But you know what? If you just keep it and you go put it in a drawer, you say, oh, that was nice, and you don't share it, that means you don't care. Because when you care, you share. You know, I like all these little rhyme things. Okay. And what's the fun factor? You know, there are people that put the fun in dysfunctional. I'm like, no. We got to do what? We got to have fun. We've gotten away from that as an industry at times. Oh, we've got to have another spreadsheet. And I'm like, we're going to die in this paper. We're going to die. You know, I guarantee you, you're going to get maximum output when you what? Go radically put some love in your teams. When they respect you and they believe in you, and write this down, the 4 magic leadership words, Sarah, is I believe in you. See, when you believe in your teams, they're going to move the needle for you. And you're asking why you don't get the results, because you know what? They're not seeing you say, I'm walking with you on this journey. Too many people, and I've been guilty of it, hey, go do this, instead of let's go do this together, right? I always love that quote. Sherry's heard me say this before, you know, if you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together. It's about taking somebody else with you. And don't be afraid to groom them for your job. You say, oh, I'm not ready to leave. I'm like, yes, you are, because you know what? You need to grow. And if you're going to grow your portfolio and if you're going to grow your company, you better grow your team. And like Jake said today, the power of storytelling. And we got 7 minutes, so I want to give you a bonus for this seminar. 3 ways that you persuade people, all right? And in asset management, you got to persuade them to what? Help you meet these owners' goals and objectives. So number 1 is credibility. You can't tell somebody to go do something that you're not willing to go do yourself, right? Credibility is number 1. Number 2 is data and statistics. When you're coaching others, don't say, oh, I feel like they're just not performing anymore. That's hogwash. Say, hey, our performance has dropped down. Our closing ratio went from what? 60 to 30 or whatever. Use data. People will argue with your opinion, but they can't argue with the what? Scoreboard. Now, I've tried to argue with the scoreboard. I went to the University of Georgia, too. Remember that? That was a whole fiasco. But do you understand what I'm saying? Is when you are persuading somebody, stop talking about what? Your feelings. I mean, that's important. But people want to see evidence-based decision-making. That is huge. And point number 3, like Jake said today, the power of storytelling. People love to hear. You know, it's a powerful, powerful motivator, the power of storytelling. And I'll end with this, is does it come naturally? I speak on the Genius Zone all the time. When you see people that aren't playing to their strengths, Stephanie does a marvelous job teaching Strength Finders with Gallup. If you see people and they are not performing, it is 2 things, skill or will. And 9 times out of 10, it's the will. They've lost it. You know why? Because you haven't given them a reason for them to what? Like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You got to let them do their best work. That's the most important thing of all, is finding people that want to go do it, because it's like I say to that, Stephanie, heart work. It's hard work when you're not wired for what you're trying to do. That's like me being in the accounting department. Total disaster. Utmost disaster. But when I'm out there and leading and getting people motivated and inspired to sell and go be their best, sign me up. So I'll leave you today with this, and I love this quote by Walt Disney. He said, you can dream, create, design, and build the most wonderful place in the world, but it requires people to make the dream a reality, right? It's easier to find financial capital than it is to find human capital, right? So thank you for being here today. I'll just share with you some books right there. And if you have any questions, we got 4 minutes. Woo! All right, let's give ourselves a hand. Note taker. Okay, what you got back there? Oh, the books. Oh, this is like my heart work. Sharon Freitas knows. I love me some good books.
Will we get these in the slides that we
Yes, and Jeremy knows too. You know, if you're going to lead, you got to read. Leaders are readers. All right, Laura, what we got? One quick question. We got time for one question. Come on, make my day. Make my day. Yes, back there.
Hang on, let me get to you with the mic.
Yeah, get the mic.
That way everybody can hear you.
Yes, real quick.
Okay. One thing you said, I really, it worked for me, right? It's will or skill.
Skill or will?
Skill or will. How is it possible to make somebody, or to ensure that you get the will out of somebody? Like, what are good ways that you found in the past?
Well, the best thing to do is to identify their will. Like, what are they really, really, really passionate about? Like, what would they do if all other factors were the same? Everybody has a question like that. Like, what is your most favorite thing to do? The 2 most important days of your life, the day you were born and the day you discovered why. It's the truth. Is that funny, honey? It's the truth. You got to know your why. And at the end of the day, if you can't answer that, then go sit with yourself. Right? Because I always, and the most important meeting you'll ever attend is the meeting you have with yourself. People ask me all the time, well, what should I do? I'm like, you already know what to do. Just listen to your voice. Listen to the right voice inside of you. Crush the critic. Silence. Pull the plug. Let that critic's battery run out in your head. Because there's something you know to do. Just do it. And enjoy it. And have fun. And take others along with it. So, we have 1 minute. Anybody want another question? Somebody? You got a question back there? No. She was... Oh, behind Mary Gwen. Yes. Go. No, we got a mic. I'm the only one in the room that doesn't need a mic. What's your question, my love?
My question was just, at what point do you decide if people are getting on board or if it's time to cut them loose? I feel like we go through a lot of different ideas trying to motivate and work with them, and there comes a point at which we wonder if it's better just to cut ties. At what point do you just cut ties and let someone go?
Well, I make that decision to cut the rope or prune them or whatever words you want to, coach them off the island, whatever term you want to use. When I've exhausted everything I know to do. When I've already gone to my reserve tank with the person, you know, I don't mind burning through my first tank, but when I burn through my reserve tank and there's nothing left in the reserve tank, I'm like, you know what, I gotta help you. And we create move-out notices for our residents. I create move-out notices for others. I'm like, we gotta have a meeting of our resumes. What? I'm like, I'm gonna help you do your resume because you can't stay on my team and not perform. And we've gone through all this litany of things, but when you can look at yourself in the mirror and you said, I've absolutely exhausted everything, and I'm looking for another reserve tank, you know it's time to coach them off the island. And you don't terminate people, people terminate themselves, right? And we could talk till the cows come home, or they don't come home sometime, but we could talk a lot about just taking people out of play. But at the end of the day, if you are not aggressively going with me with a growth mindset, we're not perfect and we got to learn. You either win or you learn. And if we're not, you know, failing forward together or whatever, we don't have to be perfect, but we have to have progress. She teaches that. Progress over perfection. Isn't that what you say? Right? Absolutely. Well, it's been a great day. You either win or you learn. I hope you've won and I hope you've learned. And let's just give ourselves another hand. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you, Dr. Debbie. I didn't do this microphone for a minute. All right, everybody. Next session's up. If you don't, I'll steal the this clicker.
Yeah, there you go.
So next session up is with Lisa T in this room, but we do have lots more. Please rate the sessions and the event.
Oh, I want a good rating.
Good rating for Dr. Debbie here.
I need a good rating because I want to come back because my daughter lives in Dallas.
Oh.
I love it. I love it. And take one of my cards. If you want all kinds of resources,
Do you have the card?
email me. McKenna knows I love to send out stuff. There you go.
Calendar over there.